welcome to another episode.
Come.
Ah,
We are start now.
Hello everyone. You are welcome to another episode of our Learning Tech from Scratch. So today we actually have a new thing to discuss. We are starting CSS for the first time. So we have Midday, myself,
Hello.
Oluwatobiloba, and Boluwatife, and Chidima to joining us today for the first time. So we hope you guys pick one or two things to learn and enjoy from this class. Thank you. God bless you.
So yeah, we are starting CSS today. Ah, but damn, we have actually come a long way, I guess. So thinking back, we started HTML. I think was it not last week? Was it last week? Feels like a long
Yeah,
time ago. It was last week now. So I
yeah,
think we have come a long way now, and we learned a lot so far. We've learned HTML. Now we want to hit another milestone, that's learning CSS. So let's just learn and vibe. So I'll be sharing my screen now so that I'll be having our notes that will be following all through. If you have a question, you can always send a message to chat and we'll help you out. And also if you feel like there's something you need us to know, you can always tell us. So we also learn as well. So yeah, I'm gonna be sharing my screen now. Sure. Sure. My screen is showing bar.
Yes, it's showing.
Sure, sure, sure. So, introduction to CSS selectors sorry. So that's what we are using today. So from the beginning of our HTML class, I already told us before that when we are creating a website, right? Like the three basic stacks or three basic what's the English now? Sure, the three basic again. I don't forget what I will call them. Sure, the three basic stacks, tech stacks that we use are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So when building web, they work hand in hand. So we already learned HTML, which is the skeleton of our website. Basically, the structure that you have to follow when creating a web page. Then we now have CSS. CSS is basically like the design or how you want that structure to look like. And in our first class, I already told us that when we are building a web, right? I give us an analogy or an example that is like alike to building a web. That's building a house, or let's just say God creating human beings. Each of them is like the skeleton of our body. Then the skin, the hair, the clothes we wear, how we look like, whether we are dark skin or light skin, whether we have big forehead or go. So all those all of those things are CSS, you know. So then JavaScript is now basically the functionality of every part of our body, um, putting it to work. You guys. So we have two legs. The fact that we can carry our two legs up when we think about it, let's just say JavaScript that controls it. So all of those things are like to the web page. So now we are in the CSS part where we have to like design the structure that's already been created. So CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheet, and CSS is the language used to style and design web pages, while HTML provides the structure and content of a web page. CSS controls how the content looks. So I've already given us the analogy of all of this before. So how does CSS work with HTML? CSS works by selecting HTML elements and applying styles to them. The browser reads both the HTML and CSS, then combines them to display a beautifully styled web page. So basically, all this English here, within the talk, we say when you have written your HTML finish, maybe you have written your HTML or you're working in a project, you decide to write one part of the HTML first. You have already done that. What you are going to be doing next is basically selecting each of the tags that you have there, or selecting each sections of that HTML file or of that HTML code, right? You'll be selecting it one by one, then giving it a basic command on how it's going to look like. So those commands that are going to be writing are basically CSS codes. Do you understand? So that's basically the analogy that we have. So we have the HTML, you will have written it down. So you'll be selecting those HTML one by one, then you'll be telling it how you want it to look like. So that's basically what we are doing in CSS. So there are basically three ways to which we add CSS to our HTML code. The first one is the inline CSS. The inline CSS. Back in the days when I started HTML and CSS, I usually confuse them. I confuse them, like sometimes I'll write this inline CSS, then I will now write the external and internal CSS. I'm going to be talking about those ones later. But let me just tell you this my past experience later when I've explained the three of the methods that we have. So we have this inline CSS. Is the CSS written directly inside an HTML element using the style attributes. In the past, when we were doing HTML alone, I told you that there's something called HTML attributes. So I explained attribute as basically um, a property of a tag that basically gives more information on what the tag does or how it should look like. So that's basically what it does, that attribute does. So one of the attributes that we have are style attributes. So as the name implies, it's basically writing CSS between the opening tag of the HTML tag. So to just give it how that particular tag is going to look like. So, but it's not advisable because it is hard to maintain. It mixes content with presentation, and it cannot be reused. So when they say it's hard to maintain, that means when you have a lot of that, your code now becomes without structure. So normally how it is meant to be is that you have your HTML in one part, then your CSS in another part, so that you know that okay, oh, if I want to check my code, or anybody want to check my code, they go know say okay, now here and write in HTML code, now here and write in CSS code. That's basically the analogy here. So it helps us to not mix content. I mean inline CSS mix content with presentation. So when you use inline CSS, you are going to be mixing the content, that's the structure that I have written in HTML, with the presentation, how it looks like, and it's not supposed to be like that. So let's look at other ways to which you write CSS. Then we will now figure out the best one to use. So we now have the next one now, the internal CSS. So the internal CSS is writing CSS inside a style tag in the HTML document. So inline and internal, they only have one thing in common. That's they are still present in the same HTML file. Do you understand? But inline CSS is basically written within a style attribute, but internal CSS is written within a style tag. So there's something called a style tag in HTML. So if you don't want to go through the hassle of like creating a new file for CSS, you can basically just write a style tag, then write your CSS code in between tags. So it works the same way. But the best way and the most recommended way is this last method, that's creating a CSS file, then linking it to your HTML file. So that's the best way. CSS written in a separate .css file and linked to the HTML document. So that's the best way of doing it. So I'll be showing us the three different ways now in practice, so that we'll know the way, how to use them. I hope we are seeing my screen, sha. Can we see my screen?
Yes,
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 we can.
we can.
Yeah, okay, sharp. Now let me open my code. Blah 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 sheep. Are you feeling good? Sorry. Yeah.
Bro, your mic is muted.
Sorry. Did it just happen now, or it has been like that since?
Just for like 2, 3 seconds.
Okay, let's go back. So I created a new CSS, I mean HTML file. I created a new HTML file. Then I was explaining inline.css. So what I was saying is that HTML basically has like a default styling normally. That's the default styling. And this is how it looks like. That's every text comes in color black and in this particular font. So that's also regarded as a styling. So, but we only change that if we add styling to it. And this is the first method, this inline CSS. So basically what it does that how to do this inline CSS is to use the style attributes. So you put the style attribute here between the first the opening tag of the HTML, then write your style within it. So let's say you want to give this text a new color. What would you just basically write color like this? Then write your color within the column and semicolon. So let's say I want to give it color red like this. So I basically done that. If you were to check it now, it changes to color red. It changes to color red. Let's say we want to change the font. So you say font family, then you change it to, to this. So the font changes from the original font to what we have here. So now let's check the second method. That's the internal styling. Sorry, I know like how this get matter. So we have internal styling. So let's say in this internal styling now, we want to style a p tag instead. So you say we have four people on stream. So we want to style this text as well. So what we do for internal styling, we are going to come to the top of the body tag like this. Then we now have what's it called? A style tag. So we have style tag like this. So between this style tag, you now write all of your code. Write all of your code within the style tab. So let's say you want to style this p tag. I remember when I was explaining how CSS work with HTML, I said it is going to be calling the specific HTML tag you want to style, right? So we did not have to call a tag when we're using this inline styling because the styling is done within the tag. So there's no point calling a tag again since we are doing it within where we want to style. That's why internal style did not call anything. But since we are using, I mean, inline styling, so since we are using internal styling now, we have to call the tag or specify the tag we want to style. And to do that, we'll just basically write the name of the tag here. So do P like this. In this case, since we are styling the P tag, we do P like this and call. Write our curly braces in front of it. Then we'll give it a style. So let's say we want to change the color from black to blue. Then change the size to this. So we have this here. So all of these CSS properties and values will be coming again over it again. So the only thing I want us to focus on is basically the methods that we have to write CSS for now. So when we get to like writing the properties, that's the CSS properties, we'll come back to that later. So the last method now is to write it externally. So that's the external styling like this. So external style is basically just have, let's say we have a UL, then LI. Wait. Mhm. So we have this UL now. We are listing all our names out. So let's say I want to style this particular UL. What I'm going to do is basically come to my file part here. Then inside my CSS folder, we'll create a new CSS file. So here style.css inside here. Then we'll now come back here, then link this particular HTML file to the CSS file so that whatever command we write inside the CSS or whatever code you write there is going to be applied as expected. So our link is basically going to be written in the head tag. It's going to be written between the head tag like this. So we have link. So when you type link like this, you see a lot of options there which you can link stuff. So we are going to be going for this link CSS. Click on link CSS, then it comes out like this for you. So automatically it brings out style.css in that href attribute, but it's advised that you relink it to where you actually want to go. Because now if I leave it like this now, the CSS style is not going to be applied because this style.css is not the correct file path to where my own CSS file is, because my own CSS file is in a folder, CSS folder, but that is not said here. So we have to like redefine the path. Yes, yeah. So we have the correct file path now. So let's say I want to style this UL now. What I just need to do is just go back to my CSS style, then call the tag I want to style. That's this UL tag, right? So I'm going to call it. So I'll say UL. I can change the color. Color. Let's check. If it's brown, font size and 20 pixels and list style. No. So these are the three different ways. So we use inline styling for this one, we use internal styling for this one, and we use the external styling for this one. Normally, list always come with bullets, but I use the CSS styling to remove those bullets so that we know that actually it works. And the color is now in color brown. I hope you are following, guys. No questions. Are we together? How do you know the sound again?
Can you hear me? Talking.
Yes, I can hear you now. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Are we back? Did we follow up to the point where I ended?
No. But you can rephrase a bit.
Okay. So they cut halfway. So what I was saying is that we have three ways: the internal, external, and the inline, right? So we have already started with the inline here. Then the internal, we wrote the style within this style tag right here. Then the external, we wrote this UL. Then we came to this style.css to style it here. But this could only work if we link our CSS correctly here. Do you understand now? That's like a brief summary.
Okay.
Sharp. Any questions? Chidima, you are here, ba? No, yeah. We just continue. So now let's continue. Benefits of CSS. That's the external CSS. It separates content from presentation. Then we have one CSS file can style multiple HTML pages. It is easier to maintain and update, and it ensures better organization, and it helps faster page loading. I mean, it helps with faster page loading. CSS file can be cached. So now let's continue to what we call CSS syntax. So the syntax of CSS, you would have seen like an example of how I wrote it here. This is like the basic syntax of writing CSS. So we have the selector here. Let me show you the example that we have here. So the selector will be outside. Then we have our curly braces. Then the property will be here. Then a value. So that's the basic syntax that we follow. Selector, property, value. Selector, property, value. So if you don't understand what selector means, selector is basically the name that you are calling out to. So the name that you want CSS to look for before they style in the HTML. So they'll first look for that name, that selector, they look for it inside your HTML file. Then they will now apply the style that has been written to it. Understood?
Yeah.
Sharp. Then we now have the properties. The properties are this color, font size, list style, and a lot of properties. CSS is very broad. There are a lot of properties. Then the values of those properties now depend on what property you are trying to like do. So for this color now, you know that your property is going to be a color. So brown, yellow, blue, blah 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 blah. So that's that. So now let's continue what we have in our notes. So this is an example here,
I don't
H1.
know how to write that.
So
I don't know.
what did you talk?
I don't know how to write that stuff, guy. Like you said,
Which stuff?
H1, the H1 style color. I've done that, but when I write my style, like it's not even giving me the option of color and stuff.
Okay, not giving you the okay. Let me show you. You have already wait. Update me. Where do you say you are? Talk now. Where do you say you are?
I'm muted. I was talking already. So I wrote H1 style color. The color is blue. My phone display, and I wrote a text. So it came out, but I'm trying to write another one now, and it's not even doing that at all.
I will just continue. I'll help him
Like, are you
fix it.
trying to write it? Okay, you have helped me fix it. Yeah, sharp.
I'll help him fix it.
Sharp. I don't think there's an option to share screen in that side. Or is there an option to share your screen instead of me? I doubt it.
Nah, no, 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 no. I don't think so.
No option. Has it fixed it for you?
We're working on it. We're working on it.
Chidima,
I
can you
think you
hear
can share
us?
your
Are you
screen.
back?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can
Okay,
hear
can
you.
you share your own screen?
There's an
I
option
don't
to
think there's
share
an
screen.
option for it. Yeah. For you? Try it, let me see.
There is for me to share screen.
Try it, let me see.
Yeah, I'm on it. Can
Ah,
you
sharp,
see it?
sharp. There's an option for it too. I can see it. I can see it. There's an
I
option
think
for it. I
Wow.
think you have to
um
join with your PC though.
yeah, 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 yeah. So I'm joining my
So
phone.
maybe from next
That's why.
stream. Yeah, that's why. Maybe from next stream you'll be able to join with your PC, so you'll be able to share your screen. So let's just continue. So we have basic selectors now. So the selectors that we have, I already told you that selectors are basically the name you give to your HTML so that CSS will be able to like apply whatever style you have to them. You got. So we have three basic ways to select your HTML elements. You got. So the first way is to use the tag name itself. That's the element selector. That's what it's called. Use the tag name itself. So let's say, for example, now in our HTML file now, we have a lot of tags. We have p tag, we have the tag. Let's say it's this p tag you want to style. If you want to use the element selector, what you basically do is just come to your CSS file, then write p like this. Since p is the name of the element, you write p like that. Then in front of the p, you put your curly braces. Then write whatever style you have in it. So that's the first way of having that's the p tag. So element selector basically you just basically write the name of the elements, then write your style within them. So that's like basic way. That's the most will I say the most, or let me just say the easiest way here. This styles all P and H1 element on the page. So the only um catch with using element tag is that if you are having multiple P tags inside that particular file, or you want to style multiple P tags, or you want to style all the P tags inside that particular place, that's when it is advised to use this element selector. So let's say you have 100 P tags inside your HTML file, and you want to give all of them the same styling. It's advisable to use them. That's the only reason why I feel like it's good to use element selector. So let's say I have um starting P tag like this here and there in my page, and I want all of them to have the same styling. So I've already duplicated these P tags that I have here. If I'm to check it now, all of them are going to be having the same styling because of how I actually implemented the CSS. I call the P straight. You can see we have the same styling all over the place. So that's really advantage that comes with using the element selector. So now we have the second one. We have the class selector. The class selector targets elements with a specific class attribute. So unlike the element selector, what the class selector does is that, okay, I want to select this particular tag or select this particular set of tags. So now, unlike this P tag that we have here and I've selected everything, right? So let's say I did another styling. First off, to add the class selector, you have to like give that particular P tag a class. So to do that, you just press it between the opening tag, you press class like this, the class attributes, then you write your name inside it. So that class attribute is always advisable to put something like that's relatable to it, that has meaning. Do you understand? So let's say in this place now, you want to start the P tag, you can just name it paragraph like this, yeah, paragraph. So when we have paragraph here, what you now need to do is to come back to your CSS, then you say dot paragraph, then you now put your curly braces in front of it, then you put whatever styling you want for that paragraph. And to do that, you basically just add, maybe you want to add font size and 30 px and font family, um, text decoration. So we have this in the paragraph. Let me remove this style that I put here. So you can see this particular tag now has this styling because I put the class selector there. I added this paragraph to it here. So that particular styling is only going to affect tags that have that class selector. So let's say I want this tag now to have the same styling. I'll just come here and say class, then put paragraph inside it. I'll come here again. Yeah, sure. So if I check it now, you see we have this, and this. So three of them now have the same styling, even though all of them are P tags. So when you use class selector, you only choose the one you want your style to apply to. So that's basically the advantages of using class selector. And I feel like it's more advisable to use class selectors than using the element selector in general. You only use that when you don't have a choice, or you use it when you actually want it to apply to a certain amount of tags or all the tags in that particular file, graph. That's basically when you use your element selector. So now we have the last example, that's using the ID selector. So unlike the class selector that you can select multiple tags and apply a particular styling to all of them when you put the class attributes within it. So ID selector basically gives just one selector or just one tag inside the file, that particular styling, only one. So that's why it's called an ID. For example, now a lot of us or all of us here have ID cards, maybe school ID card or student ID card, whoever, you shall have ID card. So the ID card that you have now um, is basically for only you. It's an identification for only you. Do you understand? So you cannot have your ID used by another person, or so two people cannot use the same ID. That's the point of ID. An ID is always unique. So that's what they thought about when giving this ID selector. So that ID it basically just applied to one tag. So let's say if I come to this p tag now and I give it ID, then I give this ID what should I give the name? Para one. So let me just put para one there in that one. So I have this ID now for this particular p tag. So if I come inside here and I want to do the styling, I want to write the styling for that para one, what I'm going to do, I'm not going to put in dots like class on. This one only used for class. So if you want to use elements, you just put the name of the tag. If you are using for class, you put dots, then the name you put in the class attributes. But for ID, you put hashtag like this, then the name that you put within the ID attribute. So para one like this, then you continue with normal curly braces. Then you now put maybe color. mm, So you have already started para one. If I'm to check it now, only the first one is supposed to So we have this one. We have 4 people on stream today. So that's the only one that has that styling because we gave it an ID. Now see what happens when I give multiple elements that ID of para one. Now I already told you that ID is supposed to be unique. So let's check what happens. Yeah, come on. This is not supposed to be actually. Wait. So apparently what I'm saying is here that the thing is not applying to everything. But it's supposed to be for only one, basically. That's why it is an ID. And that's what I've been taught or I've learned over the years. So I don't know why it's not applying to it now, Sha. So let's just continue regardless. But just have it in mind that when you're using an ID, you're basically using it for one HTML tag. Then class element. No, class selector is used for multiple. Class selector is just more multiple. Then ID selector is to target a single element within a specific ID attribute. I mean, with a specific ID attribute. So that's the 3 selectors that we have. So we have element selector, class selectors, and ID selectors. So those are the 3 ways to which you can apply styles to HTML element. So important rules, ID must be unique. Use each ID only one per page. IDs must have higher specificity than classes and use IDs sparingly. Prefer classes for style. That means if you are going to be using ID, let it not be all over your code. Let it just be once in a while when you actually need it. So you use classes more often than ID. So you can always work with that. So we have the elements, the class, and the ID attribute. So we use elements when you want to style every tag in your every tag with that same tag name in your file. So let's say you want to style p tag, you know that all the p tags in that particular file is going to apply to that. I mean, the style is going to apply to all the p tags in that file. Then for class, it only affects the one that is specified for it to affect. Then the ID only affects one. It's supposed to affect only one in your page. So that's that. So are we following? Are we together, guys? Hello.
Yeah.
Any questions before I move forward? Okay, sharp. So now we have another one called the descendant selector, but this one is not part of like the main ones. Do you understand? Descendant selectors is basically when you have a tag within another tag, right? And you want to like style the child tag. The child tag is the one that is within the tag. Do you understand? So let me give us an example. So let's say we have here. Okay. No, I'm not service paid descendant. Could have okay. Descendant selector. Right. So descendant selector now we have this. So you have, let's say we have a div tag here with class example. So we now have a p tag within it here. So the p tag said hello, I'm meeting is type right. So what you want to do here is now you want to style only this p tag that's within this example tag. What it is expected of you to do is that use the descendant selector. That means you have to call the parent element first before you now call the child element. So this is how we are going to go about it. So if you were to style this p tag, what you do is this: you come inside your div, then you call the class first. So you see dot example like this. Then the p tag will come after. Then you now put your curly braces after it. So that's how it's going. So that's what the descendant selector is. So you basically just call the external one first. Then you now call the one you want to style after. So if it were um ID selector too that was here, you can do the same thing. Or element selector, you can do the same thing. It must not always be class. What I mean is that let's say you did not put any class attributes here and you want to start this p tag, what you do is to call the element first. So you call the div like this first. Or if it was ID that they put there instead of class, you call the ID first before the one you want to call. So that's basically how it is, how it is done. That's how an ID, I mean the sender selector works. That's how it works. So now, so with the example that we have, you can see we have this div with class of article, and we now have a p tag within it. So they now start for it here. You can see dot article p. So we now color gray and line height 1.6. So what is going to be happening here is that the p tag within article alone is going to have this particular styling. So that was happening there. So only p tag inside article. So I already explained that. So let's go there. Then we have the multiple selectors. That means you want to give multiple HTML tag the same styling. So this is how it works. So let's say I have let me come down. I have small I have this, what's it called now? H1, H2, H3. Then I want to start the three of them. So what I will do is this: I will just come into my CSS file, then I will now write something like this. So I want to start the three of them at the same time. I write H1, comma, H2, comma, H3. Then I will now have my thing like this. So any style that I write in between this place now is going to be applied to all of the H1, H2, and H3s in my index.html file. So let's say I want to change the color to purple. I want to change the font family to this. So if I check it now, you can see even with the fact that three of them are not the same sizes, they still follow the same style. That's the color purple and the same font. So that's how multiple selectors work. So you only use multiple selectors when you want to give the same styling to multiple HTML tags with different, maybe different names or something. So you can use it. So it does not really apply to the name of the element. You can see in the second example now, we have a HTML tag that is with the class selector, and this one has an ID selector. It still works the same way. So basically what this was supposed to do is basically help us to like avoid repeating code instead of having to write highlight styling first, then write important styling again, then write special home separate. Since three of them have the same styling, you can always just put comma after everything and put the same styling for the three of them once and for all. So this reduces code repetition and keeps your CSS dry. So when they say dry there, that dry is actually a term. It means do not repeat yourself. It's basically a term that programmers say here and there. So that's basically how CSS was basically. So I've talked about CSS being what we use to style. I've talked about how CSS work with HTML. That's it calls a selector, then applies the style to the selector. And I've talked about the different types of selectors that we have. That's the element selector, the ID selector, and the class selector. Then the other two that we have, the descendant selector and the multiple selector, just comes after it, those three main ones. So now we now have to now learn about the properties, the CSS properties now. Before we continue, do you guys have anything to say? Do you have anything to say before we continue?
No. Yeah,
Okay. So Chidimanko, you know get anything to say?
I've been following up.
Okay, sure. So now we have the color property now. So this color property is the first CSS property we are going to be talking about. You have seen me use it a lot in examples, so I always, you know, say it again here. So the first property, that means with whatever HTML tag or HTML elements you want to style, you can always use the color property. That's writing it within the what's it called now? The curly braces of every style you want to write. So basically just use the color, then write the color you want to write in front of it. So that's how it is done. So color does not only apply to that color. Sometimes you might want to style the background of maybe a text or a box. You can always do the same thing. So you just do background color, then the color you want to specify. Let me do an example with this one, with background color. I mean, before we continue, let me clear out my code. So I have like a fresh page to start. So I'm going to be using strictly the external styling for our session. So, because that's like the recommended one. It's nicer to use and everything's like separate your, you know, your styling from your presentation. So let's say I want to style the body now. When I say the body, we have already explained from the first class of our HTML that the body tag is like where every code is going to be. So that means the body tag is basically the white space that you have in your browser. So this white space now is your body tag that is there. So anything you want to put inside it can always be fitted into this white space. So now I want to change this thing from white. I don't want to make it be white again. What will I do? I'll come to my CSS now and call the body tag. Since it's an element and there's only one inside our page, call the body tag like this and give it a background change. Let's say background color tomato red. So I've changed the color from white to red. So this is how the background color now looks like now. So that's an example of background. So if I want to change, I want to write an element inside now. Let's say h1. Welcome to the first HTML, CSS session. And I want to start with h1 now. Let's say I want to give it a class of head text. And I'll come to my CSS now and say dot head text. Then I'll put color white. Since white is more visible on red background, so it's white there. And if I check it, it looks something like this. Welcome to the first class CSS session. So that's an example where we used both. That's the CSS, I mean the color and the background color. So we now have different ways to specify color now. So the first way is the named color. That's the one that I've used. We have the named color. That's the one that I used here by calling the name of the color straight. So background color, I said tomato. Background color, I mean color, I said white. So that's the name of the colors. That's the first example. So let's say you want to use another method to like name your colors now. We have two methods. I mean, three different methods. The first one is name colors. The second one is now the hexadecimal colors. So hexadecimal colors are basically colors saved in a certain code. Do you understand? So that's basically it's called an hex code or hexadecimal color code or something like that. So it's basically writing something like this hashtag FF0000 and it brings out the color for us. So we use that in place of names sometimes as well. So you can always come to this place. I will use tomato now and just press hashtag FF123. Sorry, 1234 like that. So this is color red actually. So if I check it now, thing changes to red. So there are a lot of them. You can see green, blue, dark green, white. So you say 00FF00. So we have hexadecimal colors. Anyone works for you, if you can use this one, you can also do and work with your color level too. Then we have a third one. That's the RGB colors. So this RGB, our VS Code, our code editor has like a shortcut to using RGB, and that's basically bring your cursor to this place because our code editor gives us like a preview of what color we are using. So when we write the correct color, it brings out the color beside the text. So if you want to use RGB, you basically just hover on the color, then you can now select the color you want to use. So you can see as I'm clicking different color, and this thing comes out. RGB. So you cannot edit it. So maybe you want your color to be more of something like this. You want it to be around here. Mhm. Then it automatically changes for you. It tweaks the color to RGB for you. Or if you already have like a specified color you want to use and the RGB numbers are already given to you, you can automatically just put it there for yourself. I mean by yourself straight. So you just add it. So that's how RGB works. So you just put the code 1, 2. By the way, RGB means red, green, blue. So red, green, blue is the definition, I mean the acronym for RGB. So they come to become one color by mixing like different percentage of each color. So like this first one where we have red now, that we have 255 red, 0 green, 0 blue. So the color becomes red. So in this case, where we now have mixture of 100 of red, 100 of green, and 100 of blue, and now come out to become green. So that's basically how RGB works. So the highest value is 255, and the lowest value is 0. So you can mix any you want. So if you want your color to have like a transparent look, you can always add the fourth digit. So the fourth digit is always like after the first three, then you put the fourth one. So it basically just brings transparency into the color. So if you want your color to be a little bit transparent, or you want it to be like, you don't want it to be like as thick as it is normally, like with the normal thing, you can always add a fourth color, then edit it. So like this one, I say 0.5 is going to be semi-transparent. That means the red will be there, but it's not going to be as pure as normal red should be. Do you understand? Because it's a transparent red. So that's basically how RGB works. So we are done with the color properties. Now let's go into the text properties. Text properties, there are a lot of text properties actually. So the first one is the font family. So you can always use font family on any text tag. You understand? You cannot create a div tag now that is for box and be giving it a text property. The text property that are given is only apply to all the text that's within that particular div. So when I mean div now, let's say you are creating a box. For example, let me show us a website because there's no way you are creating a website where there are no boxes within them. Sorry. more times. Good. Sure. So we have this. So let's use this box now as an example. This one here. So this is a div tag. This box and exchanging color like this is a div tag. So let's say you give this div tag a text for font family of um, which font should I talk about? Tahoma or something. Tahoma is a font, or Arial or Vertical. Yeah, this was a font. So let's say you give the box a font family. I know the box is not a font, it's not a text. So the text, I mean, the font is only going to apply to the text that are inside that box. Do you grab? So the text only applies to bring together and divide. So that's what the text is going to, the font is going to apply to. But if you are using a text tag normally, so maybe you want to change the text of H1, and then it applies automatically to the text tags. So that's basically how fonts or text properties work. So if you are using a text tag, maybe like P tag, span tag, H1 tag, H2 tag, all of those tags are text that you put in within them, it will automatically apply to them. But if you are using a tag that is not text based, maybe a box tag, a button tag, the the font property will apply to the text that is within it. So if you're having a H1 tag within the box that you're styling, the font will apply to that tag. So that's that about how the font properties work. So we have a lot of font properties actually. We have font properties like, sorry, we have font properties like font family. We have already talked about this. Then we have font size, we have font width, we have text align. So text align is basically where you want that particular text to be on the screen. So let me show you as an example. We already, like from the name, we already know what all those stuff. I'll be applying it to this head text, this H1. That one I'll be applying it. So I say font family, example Franklin, then font width, bold, font size. Let's say you put 40 px. So you can see I'm writing px at the back of the size. That px is basically a unit. So we went to secondary school, right? Or primary school. Well, you shall go school. Anyone, whether you are secondary school or in primary school, we always know what unit are called, maybe centimeter, meter, and so they're basically how sizes are measured. Do you understand? But in this case, they measure them in pixels. There are other units, but we'll talk about those ones later. We have the px units here. So we have other ones like the en, we have the rem. So they are basically units that we use to size. You can see them here. We have a lot of them like this. Like this, we have a lot. So they are basically used to size our properties or styles. When it comes to sizes, you can always use any of the units there that you know you like. So we'll be using this px stars px because it's like the smallest, or let me just say the standard unit for sizing in HTML and CSS. Do you understand? So we have this one, 40 px. That we're going to size this head tag. So another font property is the, what's it called now? Um, text align. So that's where I want to go to. So we have text align. Then normally, this text align is always set to the left. So when you style your text property without giving them a alignment, that means you did not specify where the text is going to be placed in your screen. It's going to be falling on the left side normally. So let's say you want to change this now, it's going to come back to the to where you want. So if I want to put center, it will fall in the center. If you want to put it in the right, you go to the right like this. So anyone that I want. So we have other ones. We have justify. Let me check what justify does. So justify puts it back on the right. I mean left. So let's just put this one at the center. First of all, let me change this city. That is it. So Let's check other font properties that we have. So we have the line height. So line height basically controls the vertical. It controls the vertical size between text. Control vertical space between lines of text. So to show example on this line height, now I have to create a new tag. Let's say I have a p tag, so it has to be plenty. So put a p tag here, then put a lot of text in it. So let's just use this placeholder text. Lorem 50. Yeah. So let's check it out. So this is how it comes out here. So if I was to style this p tag now, I'll basically come to my CSS here. Let's give it a class. So I'll give this one a class too. Let's just say description or something. Like this. Now come here dot descript like this. Then I'll now change the line height to, let's check. The default is like 1.6 px, I guess. So the default, I mean, size 1.6 times the font size. So that's how line height works like this. It basically times the font size before it gives it like a space vertically. So when you put line height 1.6, that means you want the line height size there to be 1.6 times the size of that particular text. That's basically how it works. So let's say we have a font size here. 20 px. Then we give it a line height of 1.6. The line height is basically going to be 1.6 of 20 px. So you can see that the vertical spacing has increased and the text has also increased. Let's change the color from black to white so to be more visible. So that's how line height works. You can always apply it to your text. So I already spoke on units before. Let's talk about it again. So the first unit, that's the fixed size that doesn't change. That's px. So when we use px, it is advisable to use px when we are specifying a fixed size that does not change over time. So in the case where you find yourself to be using maybe like text, because most of the time text size is always like follow the same size all through. So we always leave it as px because it's like a fixed size. So, but when it comes to sizing, boxes to be precise, when it comes to sizing boxes, like this box that we have here, 1, 2, 3, it's advisable to use percentage. Percentage is also a what's it called now? A unit. Do you understand? So if I'm to look at this box now, let's say I'm having it to be taking 30% of my screen. So we have 3 boxes here. Each of them are taking 30% of my screen. All right. Then now I want to like size it for small screen. It automatically still takes the 30% that I've specified here before. So it's not going to be shifting my or taking the fixed size that was there. So let me give it, let me show us an example of what we have here already. So you can, let me just show us what I've done before. So let's say I'm creating 3 divs now. And I give them a class of box like this. And I come to my CSS and I say dot box like this. And I say width. Width is also a property. Then I say 300 px. Height 300 px like this. Then background color. Because it's not going to show without a background. I'll give it this. So 3 of them are showing like this on top of each other. So that's because that's like the what's it called? The default way that they are supposed to show. But let me say I want to like show them in a row format. I'll use display flex. We'll come back to all of this later. This display flex later. But just know that it helps you to like display your okay, it's not going to work like that. Display flex only works in the parent element. So let's say we put this sharp. So now they are like this, they are on the horizontal axis. So display flex basically just helps us to display whatever we want in a row format instead of the column that is default, like that's the default of displaying things. So everything is going to be displayed on top of each other if you don't specify for them to display beside each other. Do you understand? So I was able to put these three of them beside each other only because they're inside one element. That's the parent box. So you specify that okay, I want these three boxes that are inside this parent box to be displayed beside each other rather than vertically. So that's why I had to change the structure that I put there before. Then I put the parent box here with display flex. So what was I saying? I was explaining the width and percentage. So like this now we have the 300%, px here. So even though the size of this screen changes, they still take that size 300 px that were there before. So if I'm to change the screen, the size of my screen like this, the size does not change. It's still going to be 300 px. It's still going to be 300 px. But if I was using, first off, before I do this, let me just change what's it called now? um, sorry, there might be some things I'm doing on that you don't understand, but then we'll still come back to it later. So we have these three boxes now that are in 300 px now. So we have them like this here. And I was explaining that if you wanted to use a fixed size for them, you have issues when the size of your screen changes because they still keep that fixed size 300 pixels. But in a case where you put a width, a percentage there, let's say you put in the width now, you put maybe like 30%. So regardless of how small your size, the screen size is, they will just keep taking 30% of the screen. They will not change from that 30%. That's the difference between um you can see on my small screen now, it did not overflow. You see it became 30% of the screen. But if I was using 300 px like this, and I check my small screen that we have here, then you can see that it's taking all the size that is there. You cannot see any space there again. That's why. And again, to get this extension is a what's it called now? Chrome extension. You can always just search on your Chrome like this. You just search for, let me check, mobile simulator. search for mobile simulator extension, then download it. So you'll be using it a lot when it comes to responsiveness, because responsiveness is one of the most vital part of building a web page. And when you are building with CSS, it comes along as well. So responsiveness is basically building what you see here to match your phone screen so that whatever user or the users that are viewing your website on small screen will not have discomfort or will be comfortable using your page because they are able to see the thing nice and well arranged as well, because the screen sizes are different. That's the laptop screen is different from your phone screen. So what on how they are displayed is also going to be different. Social percentage is better when it comes to like sizing things that doesn't have to be fixed, like size of a box or width of a container or something like that. So we'll get to that later, Sha. But just like have it in mind that percentage makes sizing relative. But when you're using like PX, you're following a fixed pattern to sizing that particular element. That's basically. Then we also have EM. So relative to the parent element or elements font size. Me, I don't advise EM sha. Me, I don't use it. I don't know why. Caution can compound when nested, making calculations tricky. So it's better to just stick with the two that we have. That's PX and the percentage. That's the one I use. PX and percentage. I use PX and percentage only. I don't use any of these sizes. But you can also like check more on them. We have the EM, we have the REM, that's REM, root EM, relative to the root element. So you can always use them. So they are basically size. You can see 16 px is equals to 1 EM. So so REMs are bigger than px. The unit of REM is bigger than px. So if you are using two REMs, that means you are using 32 px. If you are using one REM, you're using 16. So anyhow you want to, any units you are comfortable using, you can always use them. So as long as you know the calculations, I know how they work, then you will not have issues at all. So unit comparison summary. So PX is absolute. That means it's a fixed type of unit relative to fixed. Best use borders, precise spacing. Then percentage, use it for width, heights, and layouts. Then EM, use it for font size. Then REM, use it for root font size. That's font size is consistent spacing. So you can use them like this. You can always take a screenshot of this as well if you want to like know how to use the right unit at a given time. So always just know that when you are doing um um layout, width and height, you can always use percentage. Then if you are using for fixed sizing, you can always use PX or EM or REM. So three of them works for fixed more than designing a web page structure. That's the layout, I mean. So that's that. So any question? We have come to the end though. It's just conclusion that remains like this now. I just did talk since nobody talk. Hello, are we still here? Toby,
You can't hear me.
I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Um, I said I was
You get
talking since.
question?
No, but we'll talk
Oh,
after.
sorry. Okay. So that's basically on our all on our first CSS, CSS class. We will only get better from here. So I have a mini project that we should do. I think we should do it together. Take first one. Take the HTML page you created in week 1, class 3, and apply the following styles. Step 1, create your CSS file. Create a new file called styles.css in the same folder as HTML file. Then step 2, link your HTML to your CSS, then add these styles. Body, this, this. So these are a lot of styles. Then add the class to specific paragraph and style them differently. So we have basically done all of this during the course of the class. We don't have to like go by them again. But these are practice questions for us to do. I'm also going to post it again. So it's just advisable to like follow up with like what's it called now? Practices. So when you're learning here with us, also can get like an hands-on practice because you might feel like you understand during course of us explaining, but if you do not practice it, so just enter one year and rush through the other year. It's advisable to like practice by yourself too. So that's that for today. Do we have anything to say? Chat. There's one person is watching. I mean two.
I love watching,
Two.
and we appreciate them.
Yeah, we appreciate. Welcome on stream. We are here because of you, for the two people. We have more
Do
people
it to
coming,
bring
sha,
us
by the
now.
grace of God. So
1
yeah,
million views. Yeah.
sharp. So I'm handing the mic over back to Toby to conclude the session. So fini.
So that's a wrap for today, guys. I hope you guys were educated and also entertained because it's trying to be like a mix of everything. So do well to like and subscribe. It serves as motivation for us to keep on going, to keep on impacting ourselves and impacting you. Then do well to join us on our next stream, which is going to be on Friday. But before then, I'm going to drop a summary review tomorrow on what we did today so that you can have like, okay, if you cannot watch the whole 1 hour 11 minute stream or thereabout, you can just watch this one for like not up to 10 minutes, so you can just fully get everything and also try and do the project because it will help you to deepen your knowledge about what we did today. So thank you very much. We meet again on Friday.